Hey, welcome back, guys. We're at it this morning getting ready to throw these bearings into these con rods and get those thrown into the short block here. If you guys are new to the channel, if you're just tuning in, be sure to jump down to the description below. I've dropped the playlist and you guys can check that out from our first video all the way up until now. And it'll bring you guys up to speed on this light resto for my 1983 Formula F20. So, you guys don't want to hear me talk? Let's get to work. There we have it, folks. We've got all the bearings in place, ready to rock and roll. We've got assembly lube on both sides. Went ahead and threw some assembly lube on the wrist pins, so that way they're lubed up. I'll put a little bit of oil inside of the cylinder, so that way, you know, it doesn't nick or score or damage the inside of the cylinder when I am compressing the piston rings and getting those pressed in. I've got my little guy here. I'm gonna clean this up before I use it because it's a little dirty, but Old Faithful there. We'll get her squared away. I'll probably place you guys on a time lapse while I do this because it just makes it easier to film. This is kind of something that I need to pay attention to and take my sweet time, because you don't want any of the studs on the con rods to hit the actual polished part of the crank, because that'll be a no-no, and then we got to pull it all back out, get it repolished, and I don't want to go through that. So that is the game plan, folks. Let's get to it. Got the con rods snugged up against the crank there, just hand tight. I'm about to go through the torque procedure now and tighten down all those con rod caps to their torque spec. And then from there we can throw the windage tray on and the oil, the oil pump and then the windage tray. And I did forget to order a dang gasket for my oil filter housing. So I'm gonna have to run up to the parts store and grab one of those before we can finish that up. So we're about done with the bottom end, and once that's all done and good to go, we'll throw it into time. You can already see I've got my crank here. It's kind of hard to see the dot, but there's the dot there. I've got the crank, cylinder one, top dead center. We'll throw the cam sprocket on there, get this guy in time, and then we can throw the heads on. So the torque spec for the con rods are between 40 and 45, so I'm just going to do it at 43. Well, you know what, I'll do 45. Alright, 45 it is. Alright guys, got the new oil pump here. Got the brand new copper gasket or seal on there. I'm going to put this guy in from the top because unfortunately it's not going to hold on to it. It's going to end up falling down. Real simple. Real simple and straightforward here. I'll get that guy torqued down and then get this windage tray on. Well guys, looks like I've goofed up. The windage tray that I ordered off Summit Racing looks to be an 86 plus small block Chevy windage tray, and mine is I think it's 68 to 85, I believe it is, but you can see I got the 2, 4, and the 6 bolts. And unfortunately, I've only got the 2, 4, missing the other 2 here, so I'm gonna leave it in right now. I'm not quite sure if I can get away with using it. I kind of feel wrong doing it. I feel like I should just order the right one. So looks like the bottom end may be on a hold until I can do that. So dang it, man. I'm a little frustrated with myself, but we can still get the heads on and still get the motor assembled. I'll just have to drop the pan on there and just snug it down so that way nothing gets in there. And yeah, oh well, that's my fault. Even though I goofed up, I'm still gonna get this thing assembled as far as I possibly can. As you guys can see, I've got my little dot there on the crank lined up, pointing upwards. I've got piston 1 at top dead center. I went ahead and rolled the cam over until it's at its lowest point. You guys can see down in there. She's chilling down at its lowest point. And when we put the new cam gear on, you'll see the dot at the top there. When it drops right in here, you can see that top sprocket. That dot there lines up with the bottom dot. And then we can get the chain on. So yeah, that is that. I'm also gonna go ahead and just order the correct windage tray. I'm gonna contact Summit Racing, see if I can't get the old one back to them for a 6-bolt style. So, all right, let's get it in time. Hopefully you guys will be able to see me when I'm putting the sprocket and chain on, but first thing I'm gonna do is put a little bit of blue Loctite on the actual cam sprocket bolts. Got a few of those guys ready to rock and roll. I'm gonna find my orientation mark, slot it up here, and I can't get this guy all the way on here. Cam just needs to come down just a tiny little bit. That's just holding it in place. I still got to get the hold down, guys, but you guys can see the top dot here lined up here with that bottom guy. Let me grab the hold down or the retainer. This is my little retainer guy. All right, we'll get these guys snugged up and torqued down. Alrighty guys, we're gonna move on to getting the head gasket installed. I know this is not really a how-to video, but Felpro, they will let you know where the orientation of the head gasket will go. So it'll say front, rear, and then top on it. If your gasket doesn't say anything on it, that means it can go either which way. So I'm gonna put mine facing downwards like this, with this little guy facing towards the bottom of the block, and you know, it simply lines up with the dowels. We'll get that guy dropped on there. I'll go grab the head out of the office and drop the head on there, and then I got to run in and grab the head bolts that are also in there on the shelf, and we can get that squared away. So let me drop the head gasket on here. I've already prepped the surface. I've already wiped it down, hit it with brake cleaner, wiped it down again, and now she's nice and free of any debris or anything like that. It's nice and smooth. Head gasket will simply drop on in place, lines right up. It's pretty simple, and I'll go grab the head. All right. There we have it. If you guys didn't know, you're gonna need some of this Permatex Forma gasket to put on the head bolts, because the head bolts do pass into water jackets. And it's very, very, very important to notate that, so that way you apply them onto your bolts, and that way it doesn't leak up through your head bolts into the head and then mix with your oil, especially on a boat. As you guys saw, we got the head on there, we got the head bolts in, got some nice Forma gasket all over those head bolts. Now we're gonna go ahead and torque this side down. I'm gonna work from the inside out. I don't know if you guys noticed in the time lapse how I jumped from it, but basically you're going in a circular motion. You'll start, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You'll jump back and forth all the way around trying to evenly torque this thing down. So that's what we're gonna go ahead and do. The final torque number on this guy, I believe they're 65 foot-pounds. So I'm gonna start with like a 35 or a 40, move up to a 55, maybe a 50, 55, and then final step is the 65. So I'll throw you guys on time lapse for that. We'll get that squared away, set up the torque wrench, and we'll be done with one side of the block here, or one bank, and then we'll move on to the other bank and we'll repeat the same process. That was smooth as butter, guys. We've got the heads in place. We've got the head bolts torqued down. They're at their final number now, and she's ready to rock and roll. Next on the agenda is getting the hydraulic lifters dropped into place, getting the push rods in, and then getting the rocker arms on, and we're about there. I did goof up a little bit though. If you guys noticed, I'm sure you guys who are familiar with the small block Chevys caught this, but I couldn't get my intermediate shaft to drop down through the dizzy hole over here. Unfortunately, it's got to go through the bottom. Now I was hoping I could drop it in there because I couldn't get it to stay on the oil pump from the bottom, so I may have to put a dab of grease or something inside of this collar here to get it to stay where it is. If you look at the old pump over here, it actually has like a nylon, or I don't even know, a plastic style coupler that this guy would sit down into right here, or vice versa, excuse me. Yeah, like this. So yeah, I'm gonna have to pull the oil pump back off. Thankfully, I have to replace the windage tray, so either way, it doesn't matter, but you can see it's not connected there, so I'm gonna have to come up and shove it in there and then follow it up with the oil pump. So, all right, let's get these lifters installed and get these push rods on and button her up. First thing I'm gonna do is take some assembly lube and get these lifter guys all lubricated before I go dropping in brand new lifters, because they're going to be a little dry. Unfortunately, this is probably going to be the end of the video here, guys. I really goofed up again, and I forgot to order a new Valley splash guard, or lifter splash guard, whatever you guys want to call this unit. I'm not going to put it in my motor because it's really dirty right now, but this sits down in here, and this helps when the cam is slinging oil up into these holes here. It prevents it from splashing up onto the bottom of the intake. Totally forgot that it was damaged. All beat up. and it's just the right thing to replace it. So with that tray and the windage tray, I really goofed up, so that's going to be my stopping point. I'm not going to be able to get much else done. I've got to put the windage tray on to get the bottom end buttoned up. Got to have the oil pan so that way I can get the timing cover buttoned up. Can't put the rocker arm and the push rods in without this guy, so man, I'm really frustrated with myself right now. I'm not very happy, but it is what it is. I guess I slap the intake on here because it looks good, makes me feel a little bit better. Just try to be careful without scratching stuff here. Mosquitoes. Oh yeah, that looks great. Shout out to Tim at American Powder Coating. Did an awesome job with that. Covers look real nice now they're cleaned up. I'll throw some spark plugs in there, tape off the ports, and give this guy a nice paint job when I'm all assembled, but nice, real nice. That is that, guys. I'm real disappointed in myself, but it is what it is. I have nobody to blame but myself. I could have just looked on my freaking rack right here and been like, oh wait, Travis, you need to order one of those splash guards, and I should have paid more attention to the windage plate. But in positive news, or the positive side of it, I just hopped on eBay and I was able to find a used windage tray and a used splash guard for the Valley, or the lifter splash guard, whatever you guys want to call that guy. But I found you know, a nice used set of them, and I've got them on order, run me about 62 bucks shipped, 62 or 64, but hopefully they'll be here between the 28th and the 1st of the month, and then we can get the rest of this guy assembled. I was really hoping that we could just get everything all together, get the sub harness that's over here, all the accessories bolted onto the engine, and jump that little harness there, and at least just plumb the hose up to the back side of the water pump, and run the engine for 5-10 minutes just to see how it sounds and how it's doing. But it's not going to be happening today, and it'll probably be, honestly, next month that it's going to happen in October. But we'll have to wait another 7 to 10 business days. But it is what it is, guys. I'm sorry that I let you down on that one. I was really hoping that we could get it running, but I guess it's going to be a 3 or 4 part series. Whenever the parts show up, I will check in with you guys, and we'll get back to reassembling this engine, and then we can pick up where we left off, hopefully get the rest of this stuff on. And while I'm waiting, I'll grab manifold riser gaskets, because that totally slipped my mind too. The manifold risers are over there. I need gaskets for that, so I wouldn't even have been able to run it without having those riser gaskets. So man, I really screwed up on this one. But thanks so much for watching, guys. I do appreciate it. Those of you who are new to the channel, please jump back onto the channel here and run through our videos, man. We've been uploading for almost 8 years now, 7-8 years, so lots of content for you guys to check out if you're interested. Those of you who are returning, I really appreciate it. Hopefully you guys are enjoying the boat content, and once I get all this stuff squared away, I'll be hollering at you guys, and hopefully we can get this thing in the water, because that's what I'm trying to do. That is a wrap, folks. I will see you guys in the next upload. Later.